Overwatch just dropped a brand new perk system, giving heroes unique upgrades to spice up gameplay. Some heroes got game-changing buffs, and others got, well, not so game-changing buffs. So I did what any sane person would do. I spent way too much time designing over 80 brand new perks, giving 2 fresh upgrades to every single hero. Some perks fix weaknesses, and others introduce crazy new mechanics and might make you question my sanity. So let's get right into it. 2 new perks I designed for every hero. Now really quick before we get started, I'm not an expert on every hero, so there are definitely even better perks waiting to be discovered. If you main any of these heroes and have any ideas, drop them in the comments, I'd love to hear them. Also, the numbers on certain perks are marked with an asterisk, meaning that they're flexible and could be adjusted for better balance. Lastly, my goal for these perks is to increase skill expression and expand gameplay variety. Some heroes like Winston, Juno, Torbjorn, Sigma, and Ramatra already have well-designed perks that enhance their strengths or address their weaknesses, so I tried my best to think outside the box to come up with something that would feel satisfying and fresh to play. For the rest, I focused on creative ways to evolve their kits while keeping them skill-based. I avoided simple stat buffs because ability reworks are way more fun. I hope you enjoyed what I cooked up. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Alrighty, now let's get into it. Starting off with our tank heroes, we have D.Va. Omni Boosters. Rocket Boosters now allow D.Va to travel in any direction, rather than being limited to forward movement. And Remote Deployment. D.Va can now summon her mech at any location within 15 meters. She must reach it to remech. Doomfist. Skyborne Contest. Doomfist can now contest objectives while airborne during Meteor Strike. And Momentum Slam. Seismic Slam deals increasing damage based on the time Doomfist spends in the air before landing. Hazard. Danger Zone. Jagged Wall no longer knocks enemies back, and its health is reduced to 300. It now deals damage with homing spikes, similar to Spike Guard. And Relentless Pursuit. If Hazard lands a hit with Violent Leap, he can use his momentum to immediately leap again with 60% reduced range and damage. Junker Queen. Gracie's Grip. Melee attacks embed Gracie into targets. Activating Jagged Blade's recall will pull them towards her. And Bladed Arsenal. Junker Queen can no longer pull enemies with her knife, but she now has 3 charges to throw. Mauga. Last Stand. Cage Fight's shield is now unbreakable and heals allies inside for 30 HP per second. However, enemies can now use movement abilities while inside. And Burning Fury. Cardiac Overdrive's healing received by Mauga is reduced from 100% to 50%, but all damage dealt by him and allies within its radius now applies a burning effect to enemies hit. Orisa. Terra Soar. Terra Surge no longer pulls enemies in, but allows Orisa to fly, activating its damage when she slams into the ground. And Beam Breaker. Javelin Spin travels a shorter distance but now blocks beam damage. Ramatra. Vector Vortex. Ravenous Vortex's height is reduced by 30%, but Ramatra can now angle it using directional aim inputs, pulling enemies towards the pointed direction. And Shield Surge. Allies that pass through Ramatra's barrier gain a 10% movement speed boost. Reinhardt. Shield Plant. Rein can plant his shield into the ground by pressing reload while his shield is active. It can be picked up within range by pressing reload again, or it will expire after 8 seconds if left alone or destroyed. And Empowered Aegis. Allied projectiles passing through Reinhardt's shield deal 15% increased damage, but his shield has reduced health and size. I had 2 goals when fixing Reinhardt with these perks. I wanted to give Reinhardt more ability to multitask, and I also want Reinhardt to be able to get a little bit more value if he decides to shield bot. Hopefully, some changes like these will allow Reinhardt to be able to multitask a little bit better and contribute to fights more meaningfully. Roadhog. Meat Hook. Chain Hook no longer pulls enemies to Roadhog, but tethers them to him for 5 seconds. And Scrapyard Grapple. Chain Hook range is reduced by 30%, but Roadhog can now pull himself to surfaces, similar to Widowmaker's grappling hook. And a bonus. Piggy Trampoline. Pigpen can now be used as a bounce pad by Roadhog and his allies. Sigma. Reflective Grasp. Kinetic Grasp no longer grants shields or healing, but fires all absorbed projectiles back at enemies once the ability ends. And Barrier Bash. Experimental Barrier moves 30% slower, but pushes enemies back while in motion. Winston, Adaptive Barrier. Winston's barrier projector now adapts to the number of enemies inside it upon activation. If 2 or more enemies are in the barrier, its health increases by 200. If 4 or more enemies are inside, the barrier gains a short shock pulse for every second, dealing 25 damage to all enemies inside. And Stunning Slam. This one might be a little overpowered. Jump Pack no longer deals damage upon landing, but will stun enemies for 0.5 seconds. Wrecking Ball. Mobile Mayhem. Minefield mines slowly shift back and forth from their original positions. And Survival Instinct. Upon elimination, Wrecking Ball demechs similarly to D.Va. In this state, he's incredibly small, highly agile, and deals damage by clawing and biting enemies. Will he be able to remech? You decide. Last up in our tank category, we have Zarya. Rebound. Secondary fire can now bounce off of surfaces up to 2 times. Each bounce reduces its damage by 50%. And Barrier of Vitality. Bubbles grant 15% less energy when damaged, but now heals allies for 50 HP. If the bubble breaks, it heals an additional 75 HP. Next up, we have our DPS heroes. Starting off with Ashe. Explosive Precision. Dynamite can now stick to surfaces and deals increased damage when attached to enemies. Relentless Pursuit. Bob will now slowly walk after enemies when he is not firing. And a bonus, Scattershot Rounds. Unscoped shots fire short-range shotgun bursts with high bullet spread. Bastion. Overclocked Arsenal. Assault mode now runs on a resource meter instead of a cooldown, allowing for more flexible usage. Tactical Precision. Tactical grenade splash damage is reduced by 25%, but direct hits deal 50% more damage. And another bonus, Lingering Shells. Configuration artillery shells now remain in the air for up to 3 seconds. If an enemy enters their radius, the shell detonates immediately. If no enemies are present, they explode after the timer expires, though explosion damage is reduced by 40%. Cassidy. Rolling Reload. Combat Roll now reloads only 40% of Cassidy's ammo, but it has 2 charges. Deadeye Evasion. Cassidy can now combat roll while charging Deadeye, increasing survivability. Coming up next we have Echo, with her first perk being Echoed Ultimatum. Duplicate no longer refreshes Echo's health, but instead matches her current health percentage. However, the duplicated hero spawns with their ultimate fully charged. And Adaptive Explosives. Primary fire projectiles now function as miniature sticky bombs with a slightly slower fire rate, and the sticky bomb ability fires a burst of primary fire projectiles instead. I low-key struggled coming up with Echo perks, so if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. Genji. Spirit Slash. Dragon Blade swings now release a wave-like slash, slightly extending its range. Venom Shuriken. Headshot shurikens inflict a minor bleed effect, dealing extra damage over time. And a bonus, Flow State. Not that kind of flow. Get out of here. As I was saying, Flow State. Deflect is now on a resource meter instead of a cooldown, allowing for more controlled use. Hanzo. Steady Sight. Sonic Arrow now sticks to walls for 12 seconds, only revealing enemies when they enter its range. The arrow's radius is reduced, and it can be destroyed by enemies. Only 1 arrow can be active at a time. And Hunter's Mark. Dragon Strike reveals all enemies hit for 5 seconds. So I actually wanted to make a lot more changes to Hanzo, but I don't think perks would cut it. To be honest, I think his base kit really needs a change, but that's just me. Junkrat. Remote Detonation. Primary fire grenades can now be manually detonated with right click, but deal 25% less damage when detonated this way. And Explosive Arsenal. Concussion Mine now has 3 charges, but on a longer cooldown of 10 seconds each. Next up, we have Mei. Frost Trail. Primary fire can now freeze the ground, creating a slippery surface that increases movement speed for anyone moving on top of it. And Shattering Ice. Ice Block no longer grants invulnerability and now has 400 HP. Upon ending, it explodes into ice shards, dealing damage to nearby enemies. Pharah. Overcharged Thrusters. Pharah can now overconsume her fuel, extending her airborne time. However, her rockets will now overheat, causing her to take self-damage and receive reduced healing until she refuels. And Rocket Nuke. Rocket Barrage is replaced with a single chargeable rocket that consumes all fuel to be fired. The more fuel consumed before launch, the larger and more damaging the explosion upon impact. Reaper. Gunslinger's Duality. Reaper's shotguns are now split between Ability 1 and Ability 2, each with separate ammo. They can now be fired together, but at the cost of increased bullet spread. And Shadow Agility. Wraith form now allows for omnidirectional movement. Sojourn. Synchronized Arsenal. Primary fire and railgun can now be fired simultaneously, but both deal reduced damage. And Hypercharged Rounds. Primary fire has reduced bullet spread and increased projectile speed, but railgun damage is reduced by 15%. Soldier 76. Scorched Earth. Helix rockets now apply a burning effect to enemies hit by the explosion. And Sharpshooter's Focus. Primary fire no longer has recoil, and damage falloff starts 15% farther away. Sombra. Sabotage. Hacked deployables, like turrets and health packs, now turn against the enemy team. Turrets will now fire at enemies, and health packs will deal damage equal to 30% of their normal healing value, though hack duration is now reduced. And EMP Surge. EMP's radius is reduced, but it now grants allies inside the radius an attack and reload speed buff. Symmetra. Power Siphon. Symmetra's turrets now generate charge for her primary fire when damaging enemies. And Light Amplification. Photon Barrier increases all friendly damage fired through it by 15%. Up next, we have Torbjorn. Blacksmith's Touch. Torbjorn's melee is now permanently replaced with his hammer, removing the need to swap weapons. And Forge Master. Overload is replaced with a new ability that allows Torbjorn to manually aim his turret shots by pressing the ability while deployed. Turret deals increased damage when manually targeted. Tracer. Calculated Risks. Pulse Bomb deals 40% less damage, but refunds 20% of its ultimate charge if it misses a target. Rapid Fire. If Tracer uses 3 blinks within 2 seconds, she gains 20% damage boost for 4 seconds. Venture. Precision Demolition. Venture's primary fire has a smaller explosion hitbox, but can now deal headshot damage. And Airborne Excavation. If Venture uses Dig while airborne, they descend to the ground 100% faster. Last on our DPS list, we have Widowmaker. Lethal Dose. Widowmaker no longer suffers from fall-off damage, but critical hits deal half of their damage immediately, and the other half as damage over time across 3 seconds. And Toxic Turret. Venom Mine can now spray venom at enemies within 5 meters, and no longer destroys itself when attacking. Now then, time for the support category. Starting off with Ana. Muscle Memory. Ana can now climb over very short walls and objects, improving her mobility. And Vital Shot. Healing darts can now headshot injured allies, providing 30% additional healing and applying their full effect instantly instead of over time. Baptiste. Beam Boost. Amplification Matrix now enhances both beam-based healing and damage. And Skyborne Aid. While airborne, Baptiste's healing projectiles have a 75% larger hitbox, making them easier to land on mid-air allies. Brigitte. Mobile Inspiration. Inspire's healing aura now follows Brigitte instead of staying in its activation location, and it will actively heal allies in her radius. Shield Mastery. Shield Bash's travel distance is reduced by 50%, but it now deflects incoming projectiles and melee attacks. Brigitte will also no longer be knocked down when colliding with larger targets. Iliari. Solar Surge. Healing Pylon can now be manually detonated on deployment. When detonated, it releases an AoE healing burst for allies and a short-range solar flare that burns nearby enemies. And Sun Piercer. Secondary fire healing reduced from 115 to 90 HPS, and resource meter is slightly decreased. However, healing beams can now pierce barriers and heal multiple allies at once. Juno. Triple Jump. Juno gains a third jump with 60% of their normal jump height. And Power Reload. Each torpedo that successfully hits a target restores 10 ammo. I wanted to do something to change her hyper ring, like add an anti-gravity feature or increase jump height interactions, but ultimately, I felt like that would be too harmful for teammate interactions, so I left it out. Kiriko. Blessed Arrival. Swift Step now has a 1.3 second cast time, but upon arrival, Kiriko automatically applies Protection Suzu to her target. And Guiding Spirit. Landing all 5 healing Ofudas in a single burst grants an additional Ofuda on the next cast. Lifeweaver. Venomous Grove. Tree of Life now deals an instant 50 damage upon placement and inflicts a stacking poison effect on enemies in its radius, dealing 45 damage per pulse over 3 seconds. And Flourishing Thorns. Thorn Volley damage now contributes to charging Healing Blossoms. Lucio. Echoing Barrier. Sound Barrier's duration is reduced by 25%, but 20% of its initial shielding remains as healing after it expires. And Sonic Deflection. Soundwave can now parry incoming projectiles. Mercy. Soul Snatcher. Resurrect can now be used on enemy souls to increase respawn timer by 3 to 5 seconds. Amplified Care. Damage boost can now amplify healing. And a bonus, Angelic Surge. Mercy provides 20% extra healing for 2 seconds when using Guardian Angel to fly to a target 20 meters or more away. I actually made a separate video on Mercy's perks. Not only did I rework Mercy's current perks to be more healthy and more usable, I also designed over 30 new perks for Mercy's kit. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check out the description and I'll have it linked. And if you enjoy Mercy content, definitely drop a subscribe, because I may or may not have peaked as the #1 Mercy in the world just a month and a half ago. And yes, I will brag about that until the day I die. But yeah, check out the video. And if you're still watching, make sure to subscribe, and like the video, and comment. Moving on. Moira. Orb Mastery. After throwing Biotic Orb, press the ability key again to reverse its direction while it's still active. Ricochet. Coalescence can now ricochet off one wall, but its range, healing, and damage are reduced by 50% after bouncing. And another bonus! Void Corrosion. Biotic Grasp's damage per second is reduced by 10, but it now bypasses enemy shields and ignores armor-based damage reduction. And finally, we have Zenyatta. Orb of Protection. Orb of Discord can be converted into Orb of Protection, which reduces a teammate's incoming damage by 20% while attached. Split Focus. Zenyatta can now place 2 Orb of Harmony's effects at 55% healing each, allowing him to heal 2 separate teammates or combine them for 110% healing on a single target. However, his healing range is now reduced by 10%. And because Zenyatta mains are so patient and have to wait till the end of the video, I have another one for you. Purifying Transcendence. Zenyatta is no longer immune to damage during Transcendence, but it now cleanses all negative effects from allies within its radius. Take that, Ana mains. And that is all for today's video. Which perks were your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any ideas, feel free to comment those as well. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to drop a like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm of my channel and helps me grow. And it's free. If you enjoy Overwatch content and enjoy perk videos like this, definitely check out my channel because I have other videos made similar to this one. And I have more coming out very soon. And check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/sirenoboi. I stream there every week multiple times, so I'd love to see you there. Also check out my Discord. I'd love to see you in the community. It's linked on my Twitch page. And follow all of my other social platforms as well, like Twitter and Instagram, and TikTok. I post there almost daily. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this video. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye!